Hello everybody and welcome to Planet Sky FF, the world where everything revolves around £50,000. My name's Serge.
And my name is James.
You've just dropped a bombshell on me, and the fact that you mentioned it as a transfer that's in claret and blue makes me think you're talking about a transfer for my own club.
Okay, let's get real and legit. Serge just walked in the room. I said, we've got some transfer news live, breaking now. Bit of a left field shocker. Didn't see that coming. New player holding up his shirt in claret and blue, and Serge doesn't have a clue, genuinely,
I haven't.
What I'm talking about.
Yeah, last hour and a half I've been sitting head deep in meetings and stuff, and I haven't got a foggy.
Signed from Chelsea.
Yep.
You want to start having some guesses?
It's going to be Loftus-Cheek or...
No.
Not Kante.
No.
Hudson-Odoi?
No.
Barkley?
Yes.
Okay.
Ross Barkley is confirmed in claret and blue
for
as an Aston Villa player.
Interesting. What price do they pay?
I haven't got a clue. It's just come up in the last 5-10 minutes or so.
Paves the way for Jack Grealish to leave, doesn't it?
Officially from Aston Villa. I have to say, that's a very interesting signing for just from a fantasy perspective as well. I think it's 5.9 in FPL. I'm literally going to have a look now in what he is in Sky. So I wouldn't have it. I think it's probably 8 off memory, maybe. I'll have a quick look for you now. 8. Oh, he's already been fucking removed from Chelsea. That's really good. Sky have actually done something quickly. I mean, they can't get me a Bruno Fernandes picture for 8 months. They have now. Ross Barkley is 8 million already listed under Aston Villa.
And whose place do you think it'd take? Conor Hourihane?
Most likely, yeah.
Who's just off the back of the goal and assist, isn't he, Conor Hourihane?
My immediate instinct on that is you would be better off paying the extra for Jack Grealish if you want an Aston Villa midfielder.
But interesting that they've got two attacking creative midfield threats there. Ross Barkley's never been a bad player. I don't think there's ever been any doubt in his abilities
there.
What have you.
The one thing that always frustrated, I mean, when he went to Chelsea, I kind of wanted Spurs to get him, to be honest. But the frustrating thing with Ross Barkley is always final decision making. Final decision making, so frustrating. He's got all the ability. He feels like he's played a lot of games for England without ever looking outstanding for England. Doesn't get the goal returns that I think his ability suggests. However, if he can get fit and he's playing every week, you're talking about a potential monster there because he's got the ability.
No doubt about it.
What it is, I'd say it's probably good for Grealish as well. You've got a different player who can now carry the ball and run into the final third, etc. It'd be interesting. We've got Adam Hotcroft on tomorrow's Clash of Correspondents, so we'll see where Adam thinks he's going to fit in for Villa. But it does raise an interesting point in any case as well about the idea that the transfer window does close on Monday. And I see a lot of people at the moment who are already planning overhaul drafts, etc. Why shouldn't you? It's absolutely fine. I won't be doing no such thing until Tuesday at the earliest.
I plan my overhaul team, but to be fair, I did it in 10 minutes. It didn't take me long at all. I pretty much mapped out where I wanted to see, could I afford Kane, Vardy, Salah, Fernandes, Kevin De Bruyne, Klitsch, Van Dijk, and still build another 4 players in that were affordable and not absolute crap?
What's the answer?
Yes.
Okay, so who's the other 4?
In that draft, I had Martinez in goal.
Fine.
Lamptey.
Fine.
Dallas.
Fine.
And my other midfielders were... there's only one other midfielder. It was Callum Robinson at West Brom.
6.2 is interesting.
But other than that, so you're talking about a team that's Lamptey, Van Dijk and Dallas. Dallas has been picking up points in every single game so far, tier points. Kevin De Bruyne, Bruno Fernandes, Klitsch and Callum Robinson, Kane, Vardy and Salah. I mean, that's monster.
Sounds like you've also got one player from 11 different teams.
I think I have.
Which is an interesting concept.
I think I have.
I think it's one of the...
No, 2 Liverpool. Sorry, Salah and Van Dijk.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, they're the best team in the country. I just thought I'd respect them enough to do that.
I think one of the biggest decisions that people will be making over this overhaul period is this idea of splitting what you have across different clubs, or do you want to get like a double Liverpool defence, or like what you suggested there, Salah and Van Dijk, for example, or do you split it across? I think it's one of the real debates, and one of the reasons it's a bigger debate than normal is TV fixtures. Long-term planning looks like it's going to be a major issue. So I think that when we
Because
kick off,
what you mean by that is we're not going to get the fixtures till quite late.
well, so we think. I mean, where did we get for this week? Was it last week? Exactly. We don't know match day 5 yet, and for those who don't regularly listen to Sky, I will refer to it as match day 5 rather than game week 6. It just gets way too fucking confusing. So I think we're probably going to get, maybe when we restart the after the overhaul, we'll know match day 5 and 6, and that literally might be it. So how do you do long-term planning? Well, one way of doing it is
spread your players,
hedging your bets a little bit across different clubs. It still doesn't guarantee you covering. You are going to miss things. It's an absolute certainty. There are things that we know, or we hope that we know, certainly in the case of Tottenham, that should Tottenham win against Maccabi Haifa tomorrow night, then we know that essentially Tottenham, Arsenal and Leicester ain't going to play on a Saturday for
a while.
I think it will be up till game week 11 or something. And in which case, then you're going to want probably at least one Tottenham, Arsenal or Leicester player. But then I think most of us probably will have one.
Yeah, if not more.
What you might want to do is start grouping teams a little bit in this sort of sense.
Yeah.
That then means that you're potentially grouping others. Once the Champions League draw that is made on, I think the Champions League draws tomorrow, I think, and I think tomorrow night, and I think the Europa League draw, I would presume, is on Friday. Once the Champions League draw happens and we know the fixture schedule for that, then we can start mapping in certain things. So where you've got, because there's only 1 week between Champions League weeks this year rather than two. So where you've got, say, let's say match day 1 of Champions League, Liverpool are playing Wednesday, match day 2 they're playing on Tuesday, we then know we can lock that Liverpool fixture into the Saturday.
Correct.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Then they're playing 3 days, 3 days, 3 days. Obviously, if it's Tuesday and then Wednesday, we can't lock it in the same way. But in each scenario there of the Champions League weeks, we will be able to lock 2 of the Champions League teams into Saturday fixtures. Then add in that you know that Arsenal, Leicester and Tottenham, if they go through tomorrow night, definitely won't play on that same Saturday. We can start making reasonable estimations to what we need for cover. You need to plan ahead, and it's to be honest, it's going to be the European fixtures that are going to help kind of lay out your roadmap a little bit, I think. I don't think we're going to need the captaincy cover that we normally would, is my instinct on this. But where we end up with Monday night games, invariably going to be shit, for example.
Yeah.
You are going to get the, oh my God, it's Southampton v Brighton, what am I going to do?
Non-European teams, let's just call it that.
Well, to be honest, not necessarily non-Champions League teams.
Yeah.
Yes, but Tottenham, Arsenal, Leicester obviously could
The
play.
odd game,
could play
Monday,
Thursday, Monday, Thursday.
Yeah.
But then if you're thinking towards those clubs anyway, you might well have the coverage. So
Yeah.
And so once we know the European draws, that's when we can start mapping. If you're sitting there hoping that you're going to get TV fixtures up to December,
It's not going to happen.
it's not going to happen.
No. Let's have a quick wrap up on how you did, how I did, and then we can look at some Twitter questions as well for Sky, because we really are in a dead rubber situation this week. If you can avoid it, there's only 2 game days. Get your captains, if you've already got your captaincy coverage, just write it out. No one needs to be burning transfers now before a 2 match day situation when you're going to get unlimited transfers in a week. Barring a ridiculous injury. But even now, if the likes of Kevin De Bruyne got injured or whatever, I don't know if I'd waste the transfer or just ride it out for a week.
Transfer this week, unless you're getting the player into captain them, is a complete no, in my opinion. And to be honest, considering we've only got Saturday and Sunday, I would be amazed if someone hasn't landed on something that is reasonable.
They can captain someone else, exactly.
That is reasonable. You know, I don't know, even if you're locked into, for whatever reason, I don't know, fucking Mikel Antonio at Leicester. Like, genuinely, it's probably, even with that, it's not worth getting a Liverpool player in or Arsenal player. I don't think it's worth it.
Yeah.
So we won't look at transfers. One of the things I have been debating over the last few days is the players that are in my current makeup of squad, and am I interested in them after overhaul? That might be different to me to what it's been for a lot of other people, because I picked a team of 11 players who I thought would play every single game, no doubts, spreading across 11 different teams, get me nice and comfortably through. I lost, obviously, Alan St. Maximin through injury, replaced with Jack Grealish. Thank you, Jack, for the returns Monday night. That was much needed. And obviously, it was planned to go all Aubameyang to De Bruyne. Looking at my squad at the moment, there's not money that will be with me after overhaul. My approach will change quite significantly. My game week was 63 points.
Decent.
It's not. It's very, very mediocre, actually.
I think relative to the engaged players, I don't think it's going to be that bad.
which leaves me at a rank at the moment of about 17,500. And I absolutely know there are people listening to this podcast who are in top 100 or so, top thousands, etc. Well done. You've had an amazing start. Don't be, as we said last week, do not worry about the overall rank at the moment, because I could look at it and go, oh my God, I'm already 150 points off first. No idea how many transfers this individual's used. It's also actually only 125 points off third. And then looking further down, it feels like I'm already quite way behind in a lot of my mini leagues.
I don't think so.
But in a lot of the mini leagues, I mean, I'm only like 50 points off first, which gives me a better gauge, I think, of what's true real picture is exactly. So 50 points is one good captaincy to make it up. It's not worth worrying about at the moment. So the rank's not really what I'd want it to be after a good game week 1, but I more look at it and go, okay, so I'm averaging 83 points for the 3 game weeks. It's not quite what I would have wanted it to be, but it's definitely not disastrous. The other thing from my own perspective, other than De Bruyne's haul against Wolves, I've basically missed everything in terms of Salah game week 1, Calvert-Lewin, Son and Kane, Vardy. I fucking sold Vardy instead of Aubameyang, didn't I, for De Bruyne? Which in hindsight looks like, what were you thinking? So I've missed all these little hat-trick hauls that would have, I mean, if Vardy was there instead of Aubameyang, I'd probably be another 10,000 places further forward. It would be that big a difference at this stage.
Yeah.
So in terms of what I got return-wise at the weekend, 5 points from Aaron Ramsdale, 7-point clean sheet from Bertrand, 5 points from Luca Dean, who was interesting, he was man of the match for Everton at Palace. Standard 10-pointer captain for Van Dijk. Mikel Antonio, man of the match for West Ham, and shots here. Goal from Jack Grealish and tackle tier Jack Grealish. Assist for Pereira and shot tier from captain Timo Werner. So 63 points there with basically nothing. And this is kind of what I feel like I'd counted for. That I was just going to have consistency going even in bad weeks. And that's what it is. I think of what I've got there. I've also got Willy Bolly did nothing. And Aubameyang did nothing. De Bruyne will definitely come with me. I think Mikel Antonio will definitely come with me in spite of West Ham's fixtures. And Van Dijk. And those might be the only 3 from what I've got that I'd be looking at on the other side, actually. I think the rest will go. Jack Grealish is I need to look a bit deeper in the fixtures. And Aubameyang can't be discounted because of what I already said. But I just... They've got a tough run. And I never feel like he's going to haul in a big game.
No.
I'm not saying he can't score, but I never feel like he's going to haul in a big game.
I ended up on 55 points this week. Some of the similar players to you, I mean, Ramsdale and Van Dijk at the back. Ben White ended up with negative points because of a yellow card and goals conceded. Reece James and Kieran Tierney, basically between the 3 of them, got me 1 point. So that wasn't particularly good. In any other week, those guys could return. De Bruyne, nothing. Antonio and Pereira are the same as you. Havertz also picked me up an assist and a shot tier, so he returned finally. Werner, captain, got me just the 4 points, and Harry Kane as well picked me up a grand total of 8 points with the assist and a shot tier.
It's good for Harry Kane with no goal, mate.
Yeah, it's not bad.
I mean, Harry Kane could have had a massive haul in that game, in fairness.
I'm glad I stuck with him. There's a few in mind that will stick with me. Van Dijk and Kevin De Bruyne. Harry Kane definitely going to stick with me. Antonio's there and thereabouts. James may stick with as well because he has picked up a few tier points. The team that I mentioned earlier, what I could do is possibly downgrade one of the attackers, and then that gives me enough money to turn Callum Robinson into an Antonio or what have you. And
Callum Robinson's really interesting because he is so cheap.
Yeah,
kind of we flirted around that sort of upper 5s to low 6 last year, trying to find a cheap midfielder in that price range. Now, the fact that he's OOP and playing up front, if West Brom don't buy a forward, he actually could be really interesting. He obviously scored twice against Chelsea at the weekend.
He did.
I don't think he's going to get many. No. That's the only thing. But there's some sort of appeal in that. He's one I'll be watching again closely at the weekend. I suspect they probably will buy a forward and it will become immaterial. Antonio's really interesting because he's got man of the match and shot tier against Wolves at the weekend. You've played well in the last 2 when you've changed your system. You obviously scored at Arsenal as well. So at his value, if he's going to tip me over 2-10-7 every 3 game weeks, and what's that, 19 points, his value, I can deal with that, I think. I know that he's got the capability of explosion of combining
4
the
goals.
two and having goal, shot tier, man of the match, and having it all come together in a week or two.
A nice 12, 15 pointer.
I'm really interested in Antonio. I can see me having him. He's in 12% of teams at the moment, and I don't imagine on the other side of the overhaul he'll be many more than that, actually. Possibly even less, considering the fixture list that you have on the other side, which is Tottenham, Man City, Liverpool. That's another debate in terms of would you consider having someone with 3 good fixtures as a placeholder for someone like that? Why you avoid him? But then, as I said to you, he's the sort, I think, should you perform well in any of them games and actually get results, he'll be your man of the match.
He'll get you the
goals.
I'm looking forward to him going up against City's central defenders, for example, because he's big and strong, and they're prone to a mistake in them. So when he's on form, of course, he's a good player to have, definitely. Should we do some Twitter questions, James?
Yes.
Some of them will revolve around the overhaul, and for all the regular listeners, you'll need to know that obviously next week will pretty much be an overhaul special where we'll be really drilling down into what we've
got 2 weeks, obviously, to look into it in detail. So I think we'll do one podcast where we look kind of sort of A to W through the teams at best options and isolating, if you were going to pick one from there, who would it be, for example, and it kind of narrows your list. And we'll probably also look at we'll obviously invite a Q&A from yourselves, and we'll look at sort of price points, so perhaps who's the best option defensively between, I don't know, 5 and 6 million, if there's one that stands out, for example.
Yep. Okay. First question's coming in from Brownie_SkyFF, who says, the best dirt cheap goalkeeper. Few have established themselves as top goalkeepers, racking up impressive points this month. Who seems to be the best option, allowing you to invest your funds higher up the pitch?
The one that people were speaking about a lot is
Martinez.
Which I think it's quite...
Is he 6.3, isn't he?
Yeah, he's cheaper, 6.3. He's obviously got 23 points in only 2 games, which makes him... I'm not even sure, is that the highest point scorer so far? It might even be, yeah. So Martinez is the top point scorer so far in 1 less game. The caveat to that is there's a penalty save in there against 10 men, and Fulham. And I've just played Fulham, and actually he dropped one against Fulham, which obviously was given as a marginal offside against him, and suddenly that point return looks very different. There were a few options down there. The one thing that puts me off Martinez a little bit is actually another Villa player, Ezri Konsa. He's 6.1. And I just wonder if you want to get one of them, if he's the better placeholder. Now, the problem with Konsa is he's not going to pick you out any passing tiers, probably not any tackles. But
the challenge here is then...
he is a threat from set pieces.
Yeah. I looked at the other one that's down there that's a decent price is Meslier's at 6.1. He's even cheaper than Martinez. He hasn't been smashing in the points, and Leeds might not keep a lot of clean sheets, but he's a good shot stopper, so he'll pick you up your shot tiers. It's a debate here, James. I would rather Martinez and Dallas, so the Villa goalkeeper and Dallas in defence, versus Meslier and Konsa. I feel like the Martinez-Dallas...
Definitely Dallas over Meslier.
Yep.
I would say. And so, yes, if you're looking for that combination...
Because you don't want to double up.
Well, it's an interesting one, because you look at that combination, obviously Dallas and Martinez, what's that, 12.7, whereas Konsa and Meslier is 12.2. So you make a 0.5 saving, and it might be something that helps somewhere else. I would think with Meslier, he's going to have the odd game, like the weekend, where he pulled off a couple of great saves. He's got man of the match, which for me is very dubious, because it actually should have been Dallas, in my opinion. And he's obviously got the 14-point haul. But the 1 and 2 points before that, which include him hitting saves tier, is a little bit scary, actually.
Yeah.
So I'm conscious of Leeds defensively, whereas Dallas looks like he's always going to pick up not always. He's going to occasionally pick up tackle tiers, occasionally pick up passing tiers, depending on where he plays positionally. And obviously at the weekend, he's got shot tiers and nearly scored. Really interesting one, Stuart Dallas. I think he'll be in a lot of engaged players' overhaul teams. But they're a concern defensively as well. The other benefit is, obviously, on the other side of the overhaul, from a Leeds perspective, you've got the 2 fucking hardest games out of the way in Liverpool and Man City, worth saying. So there is that benefit to it. I would prefer the Dallas and Martinez route, I think. But just to cover off on goalkeepers, I mean, Gator, I think, is a really interesting one at 6.6. And the reason someone like Gator really appeals to me is In terms of outfield Palace players, I know like MacArthur and McCarthy are picking up tackle tiers and stuff. Generally speaking, do I want a Crystal Palace player in my Sky team? Offensive. Let's say offensively. Zaha.
Very
debate
few.
it.
Very
8.9 million. I think there are better, cheaper options here than Wilfried Zaha, even as playing OOP. I mean, Antonio 0.9 cheaper than Zaha, for example. So Harvey Barnes is cheaper. Grealish is cheaper. So Gator instantly covers off, for example, Palace if it's an issue that I need. And the thing is with him, in comparison to, say, Meslier's points, he's got a 15-pointer against Southampton, a man of the match performance that was probably deserved. Clean sheet, save tier 2. Manchester United away, save tier 1. Everton at home at the weekend, save tier 1. And his returns, because they're not likely to get as battered as Leeds can, because Leeds are a bit more fragile defensively, 15, 4 and 3 are more consistent and more solid. There's not as many variables in that. So he's an interesting one. But then when you start looking at that range at 6.6, you start thinking, well, Rui Patricio's only 0.3 more. And I know they've had a dodgy weekend, but then is someone like Patricio really good coverage for Wolves? So I think to go down to the really cheaper ones, I think Martinez would be the one I favour.
I think that's who I'm likely to end up with. So
but then the likes of, where probably a lot of us pre-season probably thought Doherty would be really good coverage for Wolves at 8.6. Patricio, really interesting one, 6.9. You could even make a case for Hugo Lloris at 7 million. So there's a lot of down there that are interesting. What you want is someone that's going to make saves.
Yeah.
A little bit like FPL in the sense, someone who's going to make saves and is also capable of clean sheets, which, to be honest, the ones that, for that, and I don't know if this is bad decision making for me on FPL, but say Matt Ryan, on what I've seen so far this season, is either going to make saves or no clean sheet, or clean sheet with no saves. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, as a consistency, it might work out okay. But obviously in Sky, occasionally you're going to captain this guy. It's going to fall. The sort of guy you're going to end up in goal is the sort of guy he's going to land for you, like when it landed for me on Nick Pope with the captaincies and you're getting the returns. That's what you really want. And that's probably why your goalkeeper is worth avoiding the extra elite guys, the Allisons, etc. And look at some of these. I wonder if Hugo Lloris is interesting, actually, at 7 million because of what I said about the Sunday, Monday coverage, perhaps, if you don't want to get involved in Spurs' attacking players.
That's enough goalkeeper chat.
Okay, cool.
Rob Pick says, who do you think post-overhaul will be your cheapest outfield player? I think Lamptey at 6 million might be mine. Lamptey at 6 million is more than likely going to be my cheapest outfield player. Dallas is 6'3", 6'4".
Lamptey's a possibility. Dallas is 6'4", might be mine. Depend on structure-wise of, as I said, I've not really looked into it. I've looked at individual players. Esri Konsa at 6.1. Genuinely, I wouldn't rule that out at the moment. There's one also that it's a gamble that caught my eye because of Jack O'Connell's injury at Sheffield United. We think he's possibly out for the season. Now, when O'Connell missed game time during the restart period, Jack Robinson covered as the left-sided centre-half. He is 4.9.
That's very much a price-led decision, in my opinion, on him over Sheffield United being particularly good, because we haven't seen anything from them that justifies.
I would be. You say that them. They were nearly at the clean sheet against Leeds.
Very close.
If you get a clean sheet from a 4.9,
I'm probably
you're laughing.
A bitter Ramsdale owner. I'll be honest with you on that.
Likewise. But I think it's a gamble because obviously Ampadu is obviously available from there. Egan suspended against Leeds, so you shouldn't really judge on what you've seen. And now we've only got the Arsenal game to make the choice if we want to look down that route. So, I mean, what would be handy is possibly another injury now, like Ampadu to get injured. And you think, shit, he's going to play every week for Sheffield United at 4.9. That's very interesting. The issue is the fixtures after the overhaul for them as well. Fulham, then Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea in the first 4 afterwards. You're potentially looking at minus points, aren't you?
Yeah. I think
But then at 4.9, any return you get is good.
Yeah.
Literally any return. 1 pointers every week would be value almost.
Agreed. Right, let's have
If he's going to play, he'd be of interest.
Benny Blanco says, as we start to formulate ideas for the overhaul, how have the first few game weeks of the season affected your plans and strategy going forward?
Not really.
Yeah,
not really.
I don't feel like
think
anything crazy's happened.
The big decision is, do I want like 3 Liverpool players, for example, or am I happy to go, well, in most instances, I'll captain Van Dijk. Can I manoeuvre elsewhere? Do I need to spread across more teams? I'm also someone who probably doesn't want to be making too many transfers between now and sort of December-ish period. The other thing that's worth mentioning is obviously psychologically, this kind of feels similar to other seasons, but it's different in the sense that match day 5 is obviously 17th of October. And then you blink and December is like match day 11 and match day 14 is the one before Boxing Day. And one of the things I really want to do is kind of look at the fixtures between sort of that period, 5 to 14 or so, and see if I can work out over a sustained period who can be consistent for me over that period. So I think the fixtures a little longer ahead, even though you can't look at the TV games, are worth looking at to see who's got good runs between. You don't have to look up to, say, Boxing Day, for example. You might decide you want to look up to the next international break, for example, might be another good pointer for you. So you're looking at sort of 5 to, that's only 5 to 8. I think that's probably too small an area to look at. But look at certain blocks in terms of your planning. I would want to get to a period on this overhaul afterwards where I'm not making any transfers unless something happens with the TV fixtures that forces that as a necessity.
Or there's a real advantage to be gained on a 3-for-1 or a 2-for-1.
Something really happens where, I don't know, Man City and Liverpool are playing on the Saturday before they play each other and on the Sunday afterwards, and they play each other on the Saturday in the middle, and I don't know, there's great options from a Chelsea or United, and there's 3 games I can have in between, for example. And
it's worth it.
You just can't plan for them sort of things at the moment, I don't think.
Yeah. FPL Lucky Plucker. Overhaul is in 1 week. Is a transfer worth it if a player is definitely not going to play this game week? As we mentioned earlier, only if you're going to captain them. Otherwise, probably better off just to ride it out.
Even if you're going to captain, I don't think I would. I can't believe that anybody's in the position. You wouldn't
have an alternative captain.
I can't believe anybody's in the position where they haven't got a decent captaincy coverage for both these 2 games. I stressed at the start that I didn't think this match week coming up would be an issue from that perspective. I did believe, looking into it last week, that we were going to end up with Chelsea on the Friday night and then possibly Southampton, West Brom as well. But for whatever reason, they've decided not to do it.
What do you think? This is from FPL Oakwell. What do you reckon the optimum formation is? Have you decided what you're going to try and play? I definitely will end up with 3 attackers and 3 midfielders. So it'll either be a 3-4-3 or a 4-4-2. Sorry, 3-4-3 or a 4-3-3.
Absolutely open to various ideas. I mean, kind of structurally, I'd like to have De Bruyne and Fernandes and think, okay, that's City and Manchester United coverage. Then I need to make the Liverpool decision, for example. But certain players in the midfield are really interesting at the moment. One, for example, is Harvey Barnes. He's so big on my radar at the moment. 25 points from the 3 games, and he's hit shots here in all 3 of them, including a man of the match performance against Burnley, which also saw him get a goal and an assist. He got shots here against Manchester City at the weekend, and if Vardy had broke away from one of the penalties he'd won, he would have potentially got the shot away, and then Barnes was looking at an assist. He's basically got 2. I think he got 3 second assists, if you call them, during that Manchester City game at the weekend. So he is so on my radar, potentially, Harvey Barnes, as Leicester coverage. Again, that Sunday, Monday thing. Then, for me, that's ruling Jamie Vardy out, basically. So these, because I don't particularly want both. These are the sort of things to weigh up. Positionally wise, though, formation, absolutely. I wouldn't rule out anything at the moment. I wouldn't rule out even 5-3-2 at the moment. I'm very surprised if I go that way, but if it allows me, I don't know, say the treble Liverpool defensive, the lot, Robertson, Van Dijk and Trent, if it means I have to go, say, Konsa and Lamptey to make that happen, and it gets me a really strong front 5 with good balance, then I wouldn't rule that out. Yep. So, optimal. Now, 4-4-2 is, I feel like 4-4-2 is always a decent place to start from, because then you can kind of move anywhere. Mm-hmm. But is that the optimal formation? No, the optimal formation in Sky is normally 3-4-3 or 4-3-3.
Yep. A couple of questions here that we don't need to answer just yet, but Barry Johnson talking about the delay in announcing TV fixtures. Does that reduce the benefit for those who plan ahead in this game?
Yeah, it definitely does make it harder for the planners. There's no doubt about it. But also to the experienced players, I recommend embrace the chaos, because the one thing that we will be, and you will be, is on top of it.
Yeah.
In terms of knowing what's changed, whereas a lot of people are gonna, you can say, oh, they're casual, they're getting away with it, they have to plan so long. They'll be casual enough to not know that TV fixtures are getting announced. So we'll be on top of all that sort of thing.
And Ron, who I think might be a Ron Burgundy reference, Mints at Sky FF says, as these first few weeks were all about data gathering for the overhaul, what lessons have you learned to take forward post-overhaul? And we'll go into a lot more detail on that next week and the week after. But from a strategy point of view, nothing crazy. It hasn't been like I really need to do this or really need to do that. I mean, we talked about penalty takers, but maybe penalty takers.
There are no major lessons. The change of tackle tiers is potentially being overplayed in certain aspects. I don't think we should be overplaying it. I think the big guys like De Bruyne's and Salah's and Kane's and all these are capable of the mass hauls. I think that another interesting price point is cheaper forwards. I mentioned this last week.
Yeah.
About the likes of someone like, to be honest, I really wish Brighton didn't have the options of, say, Lamptey and Ben White, because Morpay at 8.5 would interest me so much more if I had no interest in those guys defensively. And I think this year, unlike in other years, is a price point that you can get away from if you want to. Whereas I think last year you would have been stuck in, when people had Abraham, for example, I think they felt a bit stuck with him for quite a while. This year, it'll be easier to get away from. I think there are some really, really good forwards at under 10 million, whereas the instinct is always to power into the biggest hitters. But it might be, if you're looking at captaining regularly, the likes of De Bruyne, Van Dijk, Bruno Fernandes, for example, it might be that a front three for the likes of, Danny Ings, Calvert-Lewin, Morpay would all be under 10 million and be very, very interesting, for example. And actually, most people are going to hear that front three and go, do you know what? They'll get a few fucking goals. Then that allows you to power in alongside the likes of De Bruyne and Fernandes, your Harvey Barnes, your Antonio, your second or third Liverpool defender. And I think in my head, that might be the way I'm leaning. Heung-min Son, by the way, we think might be back for the West Ham game. Right. Judging by Mourinho's comments last night, which is the first one after the overhaul. And Sonny's only 10.1. So you kind of put him in that bracket as well. It potentially gives you that Spurs coverage as well.
Slightly more budget forward.
Yeah.
And a Hefty Horse asked a question around that, which what we'll do is we'll add this as a category into the rundown of the teams that we do next week.
You won't remember.
A run through of budget options that have emerged would be amazing. So if we're picking best player in every different position or whatever, maybe we'll highlight particular.
We'll break
budget.
down some price points and some comparisons. So I think, for example, this was a regular one last year, but we'll look at sort of between 7-8 million and 8 and 9 million in the midfield area for definite. Some really interesting ones in there. Although I'll be very surprised if my opinion when we talk about it is not that it's Harvey Barnes actually in that midfield area.
We have a very quick fire question. Danny Thomas, gents, captain VVD or Vardy on Sunday?
Captains for the weekend. Yeah,
I'm going to go Vardy. VVD, on Sunday.
I would not have gone Vardy anyway, even if I'd held him, actually. It's very different. Spoke about this a lot on the podcast yesterday. Very, very different tactical game. And it's actually one of the reasons why I decided to keep Aubameyang rather than Vardy was thinking he won't return in that West Ham game.
Yeah.
There you go.
De Bruyne on Sunday.
Hindsight's a bitch. I'll be Van Dijk Sunday.
De Bruyne on Saturday.
De Bruyne definitely for me on Saturday.
Yeah, De Bruyne for me on Saturday and Van Dijk. Van Dijk had a few chances from set pieces and he lamped a few against Arsenal as well. He took a few shots.
Van Dijk is going to have
he's going to return.
Van Dijk's going to have one or two this year.
Monster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't at Newcastle. They didn't keep a clean sheet. But he's going to have a game or two where he's going to go goal, man of the match, passing tier, clean sheet, and it's going to roll together.
Yeah.
Definitely.
This one's an interesting one. KG_Sky FPL. If Lampard confirms that either Ziyech or Pulisic are both back in game week 6, Chelsea versus Southampton, would you take a gamble on them in your overhaul?
Probably not.
Yeah, I'd say the same
But
because they can break down just as quickly as they restart. I don't trust Pulisic to stay fit.
Christian Pulisic is... See, that's another reason why. If you ask me right now, I don't think on the other side of the overhaul I'll start with a Chelsea player. And it is knowing that when I want one, it will probably be Christian Pulisic at 9.1. That said, Reece James, as much as I criticise him defensively, at 7.8 is a very good price.
He's going to stick through.
And with the amount of chances that he's creating for them in wide positions when he plays, he's going to get the odd thing like he gets at the weekend. Like, he's got passing tier against West Brom at the weekend. He had tackle tiers against Liverpool. And against Brighton, he had goal, assist, and man of the match. Struggling to remember that assist, actually, but he definitely got an amazing goal. Must have took the corner for Zuma, the third goal.
Yeah, he took the corner when Zuma scored and he smashed it.
He's on the odd set piece as well. So Reece James is an interesting one. If I had to start with one overhaul, it would be James. I wouldn't trust Pulisic. Even if I saw Pulisic get on the pitch at the weekend against Crystal Palace, I still wouldn't trust that on the other side of the overhaul. 9.1 million, there'll be a time and a place, no doubt about it.
Yeah. Mikey Yu says, new Sky FF player, how far ahead do you consider when forming your overhaul team? I'm actually going to take the mindset of I want it to be comfortable enough to take me through till December, but obviously it won't. But I'm just
you'll
thinking,
make mistakes again. We spoke about this the first time. We'll make them again.
My mindset though is indefinite. Like I don't think I'm gonna. I actually, when I plan my overhaul, probably won't be planning in game week 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 transfers in advance. I'll be going with the flow. I'm going to set it up to go as long as I can
You're not
without.
going to be able to, them TV fixtures.
Of course. But I'm going to try and spread my. I'm going to look. We talked about 11 players from different teams and what have you. So in terms of how far am I planning? Indefinitely is my mindset, and if I don't have to make any transfers, I probably won't. But I will have to.
It's going to be very difficult for anyone to plan in transfers from the start. I genuinely think we'll probably get 2 games weeks worth of fixtures, and it might be that there's something that shows up. For example, and you think, they've got 2 great fixtures and the second one's on the Saturday and I can move to someone else who I need coverage for on the Sunday who might have a very difficult game week 5 fixture, for example. I don't know, you might think Everton are playing Liverpool. I don't want to start with Richarlison, but then they're playing on the Sunday or Monday in match day 6 and they're a captaincy option. You think, okay, then I want to go to them. So I'll take 2 games of someone else who's got 2 good fixtures. But otherwise, there's not going to be a lot happening at the start that's going to make you think, I know, like we knew with the Aubameyang KDB, which was the transfer for most people. That's my planned transfer, for example. That sort of thing's not going to be happening. So the big decision, I think, unless Sky and BT really surprise us here, is what they've said. Do you want to spread around sort of 10, 11 different clubs? Or are you prepared to take the chance and steam into 3 or 4 from Liverpool, for example, and know that you're going to give yourself bigger captaincy problems, but it might not work out as bad as we think? I suspect the biggest thing is Friday, Monday fixtures between now and December, if we get them, are going to be bad. They're going to be bad. But Saturday, Sunday, the chances are in most cases that Liverpool, City, United, Chelsea will cover us.
Yeah.
So that's the big decision to weigh up.
And the last question of the show goes to Jack Shepherd, who's a new Sky Fantasy Football player. I'll read the question and I'll let you answer it.
I feel like I'm going to have to give a sarcastic answer.
No, you're going to give a simple answer. I'm hoping for,
Jay.
Right,
simple.
My first year
what
with
camera
Sky,
am I on?
And I feel a little lost. Would I be right in the basic assumption that outside of injuries, etc., if I have 11 players who are starting matches and have my captaincy covered, then I should be avoiding transfers at all costs? It's probably not that simple, is it?
No, unfortunately it's not. That was a very good strategy-wise for pre-overhaul, which is kind of was mine.
Yeah.
Look, I've picked 11 players, and from the guys that I've picked, every single guy I've had has started every single game, which was part of my idea. Bar obviously I had to sell St. Maximin through injury. No, it's not as simple as that, because you never make the transfers. Finding the gains are going to be a lot more difficult this year, because in terms of planning, and what you're gonna hear in terms of noise wise is a lot of reactionary. So when new fixtures come out, oh my god, this has appeared for match day 8, the biggest gains are still going to be around these blank double periods. January for me, pre-second overhaul is going to be a huge period and pivotal in this game. That's my belief at the moment.
Yeah, so holding back transfers a little bit is part of the game. If you've got 11 players and you're happy with your captaincy coverage, yes, don't make a transfer. Finding when to use the transfer is obviously about looking for 2-for-1, 3-for-1 fixture opportunities, or when there are particularly blanks and fixture runs.
What's fascinating about that and this year, and where it's going to be very, very different to other years, is that as I said, that pivotal period is probably going to be January and before the second overhaul, we assume at this stage.
Yep.
So where people thought, okay, I need this for Christmas and I need this for X amount of transfers for the second overhaul, etc. What's been right in previous seasons may not necessarily be the case for this year. But again, that period in January is still going to be very dependent on the layout of those TV fixtures. But I do believe in that period, we will get something that looks a bit like that Liverpool period last year, where you go, I have to steam into them. And this year I want to be ready to absolutely hammer that in the way I feel like I missed that advantage on Liverpool last year, which would have been a difference maker for me. I don't want to miss it this year. To answer the question, if you have 11 fit players, should you not be making transfers? No, of course you should now. Yes.
Yeah.
Not now, but after overhaul. Yeah. If you've got someone who's absolutely wank and getting 2,
sell them.
Unless they're, very, very cheap. If they're very, very cheap, that's fine. I mean, if you're getting 2 points every week from Jack Robinson at 4.9, I would take that right now, by the way, which is why I bring him up as an example. But if you've got an 8 million midfielder who's just going 2, and doesn't look like he's going to get returns, I think the Mason Mount frustration that a lot of us had last year, for example, it's like, I know the capability's there, but how many 2s can I put up with where he's not hitting Tyrion or anything? Move it on.
Indeed. There we go. Another week of Sky FF wrapped up. I hope you guys all had a good one. Do make sure you're subscribed wherever you listen to the podcast, because next week and the week after will be some big overhaul specials to get ourselves set up for game week 5 or 6 or whatever they want to call it onwards. Do make sure you're subscribed wherever you're listening to the pod. Other than that, though, just leaves me to say stay safe and ciao for now.
Good luck, everyone. Cue music, please, man child.